Gone high and gone very, very long. Ball toss again. Well, he's hit the pitch and he's gone big. Hit leg side, there's a big gap there. Man tries to get round, can't. You need one good ball, Simon. Styris needs one good ball. He gets a good ball, he gets a magnificent ball. What a way to end it. What a comeback from Essex. Scotty Styris, would you believe it?
You mentioned the ground at Chelmsford there. It's probably quite an ideal venue, isn't it, for T20 cricket? You know, it always gives the batsman a chance, perhaps a little bit painful for bowlers at times. But as the game of T20 in English conditions, Chelmsford is a smashing venue, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it was the first, I mean, before that, I played for Middlesex at Lords, which has its positives as well, of course, all the history and tradition and everything that comes about with playing at Lords. And I played at Durham, where when I was a youngster, I'd had 2 league seasons of playing up in one of the leagues in Durham. So it was a real desire of mine to get it back up to Durham, which was where I'd had a lot of friends from those league days. But Essex was the first where they had a real white ball focus, where with me in my career at that point, I was probably around 34 or 35 years of age when I got to Chelmsford. All my test days were done. My one-day stuff was finishing at the World Cup that following year. It was a real joy and something I enjoyed because the team were so talented. The Ravi Boparas, you know, that was part of the decision to play with Ravi, to play with Alistair Cook, even though he was away a lot. Tender Skada, the Graham Napiers, these guys who are real white ball, well, they're all fantastic cricketers, but they're also white ball cricketers with a focus. So I knew that Essex were a team that were looking to win, which was one of the main things. You want to play to win. I'm a competitive person by nature, so I loved it. And so when you add that to Chelmsford itself, which is a smaller ground, it requires... you've got to win your home game. So you've got to find a way to win those games at Chelmsford on a small game and at the ground. And I think we did that pretty well. We had some slower bowlers. We had some good spinners. We had fast bowlers like Napes who could bowl death. And then when you start getting those skills together, the crowd come into it. It's only 5 minutes from town. So, you know, people can come in after work, enjoy the cricket and then head off for a night out in town. There are a lot of real positives about playing at Chelmsford and Essex in general. And for that reason, I think there were way too many positives for Essex to not be a championship caliber team. And it was a privilege to join them because of those reasons.
3 weeks, you won another crucial game for us down at Hove, which was a ground you came to know quite well. Just basically, Sussex had scored 185 for 4. And again, no pressure on you when you came to the wicket, but at the start of the 19th over, we still needed 27 to win. And you sort of rather selfishly indulged yourself. You got 29 off of 8 balls. Whether that actually paved the way for a Sussex contract in years to come afterwards. But the penultimate over of that game yielded 19. It was quite interesting because Chad Keegan sent down the first 4 balls of that over and then got hit in the eye by a return throw from Yasser Arafat and wasn't able to continue the over. I think Dwayne Smith came on and bowled the last 2 balls of the over. And then Arafat himself had the ball to bowl the last over. And you took a 6 and a 4 off successive deliveries and said thanks very much, put the bat under the arm and walked off. Job done. Does that you can recall any of that?
No, not not a bean of that delivery. But see, it's funny because, and that's where fans of the game may struggle to comprehend that. You know, it's you remember funny little things that happen in the game. Now, when you start talking about a game at Sussex, I've got no memory of when you bring up Chad Keegan, because he was a teammate of mine at Middlesex. I remember him now being hit in the eye, but I don't remember the details around it. I don't remember the game or how it finished, just as you suggested. But I've got a feeling that's the game. The only thing I remember, if it's that game or the previous year, or sorry, the year after, but Grant Flower was run out,
Right.
and he was not happy with the decision by Kettleborough.
Right.
And he gets up with his bat and just demolishes the 3 stumps out of the ground, which is a big no-no. And for somebody so placid and one of the world's nicest guys, Grant Flower, for him to take all 3 stumps out of the ground, having been given out run out, was a huge shock. And he was fined, and he incredibly apologetic.
Yeah.
But I remember those sorts of things that happen in matches rather than the scores or what goes on. So, a bit of a weird one. I mean, no, I don't. To be honest, I don't remember that game.
But going on, I mean, what was unfortunate, and we were talking earlier on about overseas stars players being brought in to try and get the club through to the finals. Unfortunately for you, you didn't have that chance. You got us through to finals day, but you weren't able to see it through, were you? You were called back by your New Zealand board, wasn't it? You had to prepare for a tour to Sri Lanka, was it?
There are a couple of things there. Yeah, as an overseas player, there's actually different pressures that I've found anyway. I mean, first of all, you're starting in a new dressing room. So there are potentially across your campaign, 10, 15, 20 players that you've never met before. And so you as an overseas have to prove yourself again. I'm used to being in the New Zealand dressing room or my first class team in New Zealand, where you're one of the senior players, you're one of the people that people come to. But here I've got to start at the bottom and I have to prove myself to everybody again. Now that's both on the field with performances, but it's also in the dressing room where you've got to help out the youngsters. You've got to also maybe pass on tactics and any little tips you have of playing against any opposition. So your question in the just before too was, does it take any pressure off when you score 100? Well, yes, it does from that perspective, in the sense that the players know that, okay, we've got someone who can help us. The fans know that, maybe we've got ourselves a player who can not only entertain the crowd, but can help the team win. It's all about us also as overseas buying into what the team's trying to do. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Essex, I knew when I made the decision to come along to Chelmsford that they were looking to win white ball titles. So when we got to finals day, that's all you can do really. The group stages is simply about getting through to the quarterfinals and then to finals day, where it's, to be fair, a little bit of a lottery and a bit of luck on finals day. But a huge disappointment because I felt helped a lot and helped nicely get Essex through to finals day. To then be away with New Zealand, we were in Sri Lanka, and I had to sit there and watch because the cricket finals day was played on television there. I had to sit and watch the guys, knowing that I wish I was there, even though I was away on an international tour. I wished I was at the finals day, helping the guys get through and hopefully win the competition, because that is what we had set out to do, whatever it was, 4 weeks or 5, 6 weeks earlier. So it was a frustration, is probably a nice way of saying it, to not be there, and then to see the guys. I think Dwayne Bravo came in and took my place on the day, and to see us lose and not go on and lift the trophy was disappointing.
Yeah. We talk about the Essex environment and the players that you played alongside. You've mentioned a few earlier, but just keeping on the match side, you came back the following year, of course, for us. But sadly, it was a year that you were badly affected by injury, weren't you? I think you tore a hamstring or a calf.
Muscle injuries, calves and hamstrings, they call old man's disease, don't they? Which I'd never, ever had a muscle injury probably up until my 30s. And then all of a sudden it changed and I couldn't seem to not do a calf or a hamstring. But yeah, hugely frustrating. It seemed to be the way. The first year was going so well, looking forward to getting back. Looking forward to going a step further than what we'd done the year before. And you're right, to be hamstrung, terrible pun, I know, and not being able to quite contribute as I would have liked was massively disappointing, because once again, I felt we had the team with us there to be able to go back to finals day and to go a step further and lift that trophy. So, not a lot I can say really, other than it certainly didn't go to my expectations, and conversely, it didn't go to Essex's either.
No, and that was just sad. But let's go to that Essex. I mean, first of all, how did the opportunity to join Essex for a couple of years come about, Scott?
Oh, good question. Not quite sure about that, actually. I mean, again, you're dealing with someone with a dreadful memory. Uh, like every player, they have an agent. I thoroughly enjoyed county cricket. I think that's the first thing to say. I ended up, by the time I finished at the end of 2014, I played for 5 counties. Essex was my third. So I really loved county cricket in general. I just enjoyed the fact that there was very little pressure. You could just go out and enjoy your cricket, and you played a lot of it. So the dressing rooms they were different around the country, but they were also the camaraderie between all the players. I was never in a dressing room which was disjointed, or there were guys knifing people in the back. It was something that I aspired to do. So, with that in mind, I was just onto the agent that I had at the time and just sort of said, look, I want to keep playing. So can you just explore any opportunities? How it all came about, I can't remember. But, Paul Grayson was, I thought, a terrific coach, because for the same reasons, you can often find coaches who are really concerned about their own job first and foremost. So they run a tight ship. They're really strict and trying to make players professional in every possible aspect, where they don't have any other components to their life. But I felt Paul Grayson was great in the respect that he kept things really relaxed. He knew he had a group of players who were experienced, who were talented, and he just had to make sure that those players were happy. And if he could do that, then we would go out and show everybody our skills, and hopefully we would win more games than we lost. So it was a good decision from my perspective. I can't remember the fact how it came about with my agent, but it was certainly a decision that I didn't have any regrets about.
No. And what was the dressing room like? Because there was plenty of characters in there, wasn't there? For a man who played cricket around the world, had you ever come across a dressing room that was quite like Essex, or is their reputation of being quite unique, well-founded?
It was at that point, it was the dressing room I enjoyed the most. And the reason for that is, when I was at Middlesex, as you can imagine, in London, everybody lives in many different directions. So they've all got an hour's drive or a 45-minute drive in London traffic in different directions. So you didn't really hang out as a group away from the cricket field. So it was tougher to develop that real bonding with someone like Middlesex. Durham, but different again, but more of a drinking culture. And at Durham, I don't think it's wrong to say that, but I enjoyed that because they had an older group. There are a lot of players over the age of 30, which at that stage of my career I was as well. So I really enjoyed the fact that you had that experienced group. With Essex, it was completely different. We were a lot closer together. We spent more time together away from the cricket field. A lot of players who, as I say, were fantastic cricketers. So I enjoyed learning from the likes of Papara and Tenduscarter. James Foster is another one, of course. And the fact too, one of the things I will take away from Essex was one of my first days there. Graham Gooch came in and just said, right, let's go. We're into the nets. And had a terrific session. And in some ways, I was in a little bit of awe that I've got Graham Gooch throwing me balls, and we're working through some batting. I wish I'd had that 15 years earlier. So a lot of things that I thoroughly enjoyed with that group. We had a couple of Kiwis, if you like, in the sense that we had Richie Marsden, who was the physio, who's from New Zealand. We also had Ant Sharp, the trainer, whose wife was a Kiwi. So, there was a little bit of a Kiwi connection there. Tim Southey, of course, was around too. So a lot to like with the dressing room I had at the time. We had at the time.
Would you have seen much of Alistair Cook around at that time? I mean, you're obviously not known as a T20 player. You did play a couple of games. You played a few games for us. You played a couple alongside you. But did you see much of him around the nets at the time? And what were your impressions of him then back in 2010, Scott?
I think Alistair Cook's one of the world's best blokes. It's as simple as that. A few reasons. He was down to earth. He was pretty relaxed. I knew from my experience of all my goals when I was playing was because I was playing for 12 years with New Zealand, is that all my goals were at that international level, whether it be win World Cups, winning international games. Personal achievements were all around doing well for New Zealand. Sometimes going back to play domestic cricket was a bit of a pain in the backside because I didn't have that same level of adrenaline going about what I wanted to achieve because it was all the level above. And that can sometimes be a negative in the group. with someone like Alistair Cook, whenever he came back, never saw an ounce of that. If he was in the Essex group, then he was doing his best and he was offering as much as he could with the guys in the dressing room, and he was doing everything he could to win. And, I would have understood if he took a bit of a mental break, because he's such a superstar with England and how busy English cricket team is. I sort of expected him to just sort of sit to the side and not really say or do much, because he was just sort of punching the time clock, if you like, and waiting before he was looking to get back to England. So I can't speak highly enough of Alistair Cook. I thought he was fabulous in the dressing room. He was fabulous for the group. He had that aura around him where the other batsmen in particular just looked to him to learn off him and to try and improve their games. As I did as well, because he's certainly one of the all-time greats of cricket anywhere in the world. And any opportunity you get to learn from players like that, even in someone who was 35 years of age, you've just got to take it.
Yeah, indeed. Talking about that, going back to the Essex dressing room, must have been a few humorous stories. And, when you walked away into Chelmsford at night after a game, scratching your head and just thinking, they're a bunch of madmen. A lot of people have said that. Is that fair? Is that true? You got any stories that you can share or linger in your mind you can share with us at the moment?
Some of those sorts of stories are best left where they are. But I guess one of the ones I enjoyed, I think 2010 was a World Cup football year.
Right.
And I always, whilst we're a rugby country here in New Zealand and everybody follows rugby more than football, I thoroughly enjoyed being in the UK every time there was a football World Cup on, because of the whole it's coming home and here we go, the anticipation and expectation of English football fans to then see the inevitable fall off a cliff was humorous in some ways.
Yeah, we get used to it. We've made a professional art form now.
But in 2010, you have to understand that New Zealand were actually in the Football World Cup.
Yeah.
And I was at Essex at this time, and we had a sweepstake where two of the questions were, would New Zealand get a point at all? 1 point at the tournament. Yeah. And the second was, would New Zealand even score a goal? Now, everybody in the group put no 2 points and no, they will not score a goal. And yet we had the three, Richie Marsden and myself, were the only two Kiwis who both obviously had to put yes. We were on an away bus trip where we were going to Somerset or one of those quite far away counties. And there is the TV on the coach and the football was on. The Kiwis were on. They were losing 1-0 to one of the teams, whoever it was. And all of a sudden, because of the connection was poor, it cuts out. And there's, we're in injury time or a 90th minute. And then it comes back on and New Zealand's celebrating. And they'd scored an equaliser, so they'd got their point. They had scored a goal. And Richie Marsden and I were running up and down the coach celebrating. And everybody was distraught. New Zealand, 2010, when I was at Essex, the only team not to lose a game of the Football World Cup. And I made sure those English boys knew it too.
I'm sure you did. Mentioned we just get towards the end of the interview now. Thanks for your time, Scott. It's been absolutely fascinating. You mentioned in the 2 years you had in 2010-11, and a little bit of frustration that given the players that you were playing around at Essex, it would have been nice to have thought they could have gone on and won a T20, if not in those 2 years, but certainly in the immediate ensuing years. But finally, in 2019, they actually lifted the competition. Element of satisfaction for you, or a bit of pride, and think, well, yeah, I know it was some while ago, but they've got a soft place in your heart still, Essex?
Absolutely, all of those things. I'm a scoreboard watcher from afar. Some of the English cricket is on television over here. I mean, the time zones don't lend itself to being able to watch that. They're all on in the early hours of the morning. Well, not the early hours, but say 7, 8 a.m. in the morning. So you do catch it from time to time, but it's more, from my perspective, around just checking in and seeing how the team's going. So you're right. There was a huge amount of pride winning 2 titles, winning the championship. Of course, Neil Wagner was over there. The Kiwi connection seems to continue through Jesse Ryder and Hamish Rutherford and players like that who have been over there as well, who have all come back just as I did and thoroughly enjoyed their time in Chelmsford. So the pride was certainly there. And there is too many good people at at Chelmsford and at Essex, and I'm sure there've been some people move on too, of course, both on and off the field. But too many good people there not to enjoy the success that Essex has now. It's come about from hard work. I loved, for example, Chris Silverwood, who I was a teammate with at Middlesex, and then he was there as a second team coach, I think it was, when I was at Chelmsford. And now seeing him when England have been out the last couple of years in New Zealand, it's been unbelievable catching up with him. You do make friends from those times as well. So you do revel in the success that those guys have, because you know how much hard work has gone into that and how much hard work it takes during the season, let alone the lead-in, to actually win one title, let alone two.
And what occupies your life now, Scott, both professionally and socially?
Talking cricket, although not at the moment. I have done a lot of the work for Sky. We have our own Sky in New Zealand, not Sky UK. So commentate on all the international cricket matches that happen in this part of the world. On top of that, I have a contract in India and in Star Sports, and do all the Indian cricket T20 version, basically, with a product they have there called the Dugout, where we've had the likes of Kevin Peterson and Swanee and Darren Goff and Dominic Cork and all the big names around, Sangakkara.
That hasn't been quiet, has it?
No, you just sit there and let them go for it. But we have our own studio. We were able to get up and demonstrate what we see going on and try and offer some tactics and predict what's going to happen in the match from what we can see. As you can imagine, we talked about experience, and you can see things going on in the game, and you can see the direction it's going in. So we do a lot of that sort of thing in India. Obviously, not a lot at the moment, sadly, because of all the issues going on around the world. And for that reason, I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs a little bit. We're heading into winter. We've had an amazing summer, so I've been able to play a lot of golf, which has been great. And
you kept coming down?
It is, but it's now got to the point where it's hurting me. So I'm down to a 4, which hurts. We're coming into winter, so it might be a pretty long winter with not a lot to do and waiting for cricket to start up, particularly in the subcontinent, and the fact that we don't have any cricket in New Zealand until next summer, which is still obviously many months away.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody hopes that this horrible virus will pass us by. We can all get back to some sort of normality and get on with our lives anyway. But also keep well. Scott, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure I echo everybody who saw you play for the Eagles. So it was a privilege to watch you perform. Thank you for your time then, and we look forward to catching up with you again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. And thanks very much. And congratulations once again. It was well deserved last summer.